Good morning, Matt.
Good
I know.
morning, Paul.
Yeah, nice to chat to you. It was nice to chat to you on the phone, I think last week. Nice to put a face to the voice and the name. So thank you for joining me this morning. For those that don't know who you are and what you do, if you could tell us a little bit more, that'd be great.
Right, so my name's Matt Gillett. I run Tricky Cider, based up on the Blackdown Hills, and yeah, so I'm a cider maker. And I started about 4 years ago with the business. Before that, I was very keen on my home brewing, especially, and the small amount of cider making. But I made a big jump from 2017. I made 60 liters of cider, and then 2018, I made 16,000 liters of cider. So
Wow,
it's been a bit of a steep learning curve, but I'm still here, still doing it. So must be doing something right.
wonderful. That's a great to hear that. And obviously, cider very much akin to Somerset as as a business and known across the country and internationally for cider making. So you must be very popular then to your friends and family with the cider making business.
Uh, I have a lot of friends who love drinking cider, and I mean, I grew up in Taunton, so I grew up drinking cider, and well, from a reasonable age, and from one of our favourite cider companies just down the road, which everybody knows Sheppies, don't they? And so I've always liked cider, and I guess I probably went off the rails a little bit in my 20s and started drinking beer a little bit more. But having moved back to the county, back home, back in 28, sort of the late 2017, 2018s, I've really got back into my cider again.
Oh, that's great to hear. And in terms of the business throughout the year, I mean, this is quite a busy time for you, isn't it?
It pretty much all year round is fairly busy, apart from January and February,
Right. Okay.
which people fairly reasonably reduce their alcohol intake a little bit on. But really, the season starts in for us properly in around March, April time, when the first markets start up and you start getting things like the Bath and West show and some of the little festivals get going again. And then and people start getting interested when the weather improves. People start being a bit more interested in sitting outside and drinking cider again. So, and then obviously the summer is very busy. It's a lot of events. There's a lot of people love drinking cider in the sunshine if we have any, and um, it sort of pushes through to this time of year where we are very heavily involved in apple picking, and the fruit is available from cider apples really start falling the earliest fruit in mid-September, early September, and then you have your mid-season varieties which are available around now. And this is when it really starts. You know, the fruit's falling off the trees, and we need to go and make the most of it and make as much cider as we can in the sort of 8 to 10 weeks that we have before it's either taken by the starlings or kind of it's too cold and wet to pick it up. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a busy time of year for sure.
Sound busy going up to Christmas in terms of gifts and things like that for you and festivals, and it's great to see all that starting again, isn't it?
Absolutely, I do the Taunton market once a month down in on the Castle Green, and that'll be continuing up towards Christmas with a number of Christmas markets as well. I also do one in Ilminster, and um, it's it's a really important time for us for the business in order to sort of get that last push of sales before the lean few months of the winter, because it really does almost shut down in January. And yeah, it's a fun time as well. I mean, Christmas is a lot of people going out and doing things, and we continue to have people come up the cider yard here, and I do talks and tours and like to introduce people to the ciders up here at the yard and get to really tell people about what we do.
Right. And on that note with the ciders, what sort of range have you got that you offer?
Well, because I pick from orchards across the levels, which is where I used to live a few years back. I got to know a lot of different farmers down there and get involved with a number of different orchards. They have a great variety of apples in them, and some years you have certain orchards which are on, and then some years they're off. And apple trees are generally biannual, so you've kind of got a bit of a rotation of the orchards, and the fruit that's available changes from year to year. So I try and produce a number of fixed name ciders which remain the same. One of which is called Wizard, which is my main medium farmhouse cider, which I try and promote to pubs and well, wherever I can really. And that's a blend of three different apples, and I try and keep those apples the same and make that same cider year in year out. But it will change a little bit because the apples come from different orchards, and at different times of the year, the fruit may be in slightly different stages of fermentation. Perhaps one year I might have some Dabinet, for example, from 2 years back, a 2019 Dabinet mixed in with some Yarlington Mills from 2020, and it all works fine. You know, it's sometimes they're a little bit cloudier, different colours, all sorts. But I think that's part of the charm of small scale cider making, that the product fluctuates and changes a little bit throughout the season. I also have a blended cider which I've called UFO, which stands for Unidentified Forgotten Orchards, which is supposed to demonstrate the fact that I take from a lot of different orchards, some of which are hidden away and uh, not necessarily forgotten, but they're definitely hard to find. And this blend can be anything really. So I've started numbering them as well, because it's the only way I can kind of keep trace of what they are. And sometimes, like for example, right now I'm serving a UFO number 4, which is a blend from a single orchard, and we've got about 4 different types of apple in that orchard. And yeah, it's really nice. It's very smooth and a little bit rich. It's not so tannic. It's quite easy drinking. Makes a really nice medium or dry cider. So whatever the UFO blend is, I'll always make sure that it's a good to drink, and a really tasty farmhouse cider. Often the best ciders are the blended ciders anyway, because you get a real mixture of the flavors of the different apples, the different characteristics.
Yeah.
It's one of my most one of the best times of the year, when you get to sort of May, June time, and the new ciders are coming on, and you get to put them into little flagons, and I take them down to my friend's house, and we sit out in the garden and get a piece of paper out and score them and try and work out which one goes with which, and try and come up with some new blends for the next year.
Yeah, that's great. I love ciders myself, and one of the things I always love is reading the back and the story behind it, and knowing it's a local, brewed locally, and the different flavors, and part of that really, when you drink it, it's enjoying enjoying the drink as much as the backstory, and knowing that you're supporting something which is very synonymous with Somerset. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the perception of cider. A lot of people think of particular certain ciders a certain way, and they will stick to certain ones they know. And I wondered on your thoughts of how people view cider, really.
Yes, it's very different across the country, and also across the age groups. I guess people who have grown up with cider or known it from the past. I mean, if they've had, certainly in this area, access to proper farmhouse cider in the past, they may have a certain perception of cider. Um, but generally, there is I think when most people think of cider, they think of the general light, mass-produced cider that they might be able to buy in the pubs. And really, that's quite a long way away from the sort of stuff that we produce, because a lot of these mass-produced ciders are made from a juice concentrate. They may not actually have a very high percentage of apple juice in them. They'll be going through quite a process in order for them to be produced. And there's certainly a place for that in the market. I understand why people like them, but um, I don't personally find them as fulfilling to drink. You may have one, it might be refreshing, but beyond that, you don't get the depth of flavor and interest. You don't get the tannins. You don't get the florality. You don't get the lingering aftertastes and complexities of a higher a higher juice content cider. And all the ciders that we produce, and a number of other small craft producers in Somerset and across the southwest, and other places in the UK that make cider, we very much like to make a high juice concentrate cider. So 80, 90, 100%. You may add a little bit of water at some point just to bring the alcohol percentage down, but essentially you're really there's nothing added to it other than pure pressed apple juice.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a bit, it's more like a wine. You know, you have the care that's been taken into aging the ciders. They have to be matured over a long period of time. Sometimes they're matured in oak, and that adds an extra complexity to it. And that people should, I'd like it. I think we'd all like it more if people appreciated the great depth of flavor and that's available, and the choice. I mean, some ciders are more challenging than others, but there are a whole load of flavors and characteristics out there to explore.
Yeah, well, a lot of love goes into brewing, and obviously you're taking over the well-known brand of Tricky Cider in say
Yeah.
2017, and very well known locally. Going back to kind of, I guess, the time you took over, and obviously I've been chatting to people with these stories about the impact of COVID, and obviously your business, just as relies a lot on the events and people being able to see your ciders and talk to you and the whole brand and things. I just wondered how your journey was through when lockdown came in, and what opportunities you saw, or what how you coped through that process, and how that's helped you now.
Wow, that was a really interesting time, I think, for all of us. But certainly for me, it was a sharp wake up overnight when I realized that the pubs, the events, um, the 90% of my sales that I was relying on were going to become zero very quickly. And so it was, fortunately at that time, I already had an online shop. I already had the licenses in place to sell cider through the website. And so everything just turned to that. Let's go online. Let's do home deliveries. Let's do a free delivery service for the local area. Um, and I was able, through the power of the couriers, to ship all across the country. And it it went big. It was it was very busy time. I was up here every day and packing cider off and sending it all over the country and delivering it down to my friends and a number of new customers down in the local area. So that really was I think a very positive thing for my business. Being a sole employee here as well means that I don't have to worry about furloughing, or it was obviously a lot easier for me with a small business like this to cope with the restrictions of COVID. You don't have to worry about getting in contact with anyone else when you're working on your own. So I feel very much for the larger companies who I'm sure had a completely different time of it. But for me, it was a nice way to almost get the name out there. I think my people started to recognise Tricky Cider more widely, certainly on the web, on the internet, trying to push the website up the Google rankings was quite effective, and we were getting a lot of inquiries from around the country. So it's been a a real change in how the business runs and the approach to where the customers are based. And yeah, there's a lot of although currently I see the online sales reducing, and obviously as the pubs come back and people have more options on places to drink, there are still a lot of people making use of the online ordering, and there's definitely going to be an element of that continuing, which I will encourage as much as possible, because it's a really effective way for me to get the cider out there, and it's a very worthwhile way of operating for the business.
Yeah, well, it's great to hear, because it was such a, for everyone it was like taking it in to start with, and how's that going to affect me, and the reality of it. But realizing, you say, you've got to see an opportunity to work around it as a temporary thing, and like you said, with the people are at home, they're like a drink, is those opportunities, and say, well, to map out, this is how we need to adapt and survive and do that. And like you said, now you're in a position where you've got the names growing more. And so with the Google ranking you mentioned, because of the increase in website traffic, and now obviously
Yeah.
the events are open as well. And I think during this time as well, it's helped, because we were all vulnerable and kind of just sharing our story, which part of this series has been, is people to talk through their experiences, is to humanize these businesses, and that everyone's had their own story, and actually sharing part of that, which I think has been very good to do, particularly through social media. That customers warm to you and your story and feel part of your business sort of going forwards from here on, really?
Uh, yes, I'd hope so, and I'd always like to help customers out and be, you know, um, open as possible to different requirements and things that people want, and try and get the deliveries done as quickly as possible. The fifth emergency service cider delivery during COVID, people relied on I was like the cider milkman. It was great. It was really lovely to see during that time, and I made I think hopefully it. And sometimes you wonder how it works to be a key worker, as I'm sort of loosely described. But when you see people, how it sort of makes their life a little bit easier and a little bit nicer. It's a nice thing to do. So and I like to, beyond COVID and the home deliveries. Um, I love to talk to people when they come up here, and hopefully give them a good experience and show them through all the ciders, and we do some different blending and mixing, and have a bit of a fun time. And so it's not yeah, it's not very stale. I like to think of it as very you know fairly open house. It's very easy going up here. Um, so yeah, it's a fun place to come and visit.
Great. I guess part of with COVID and the confidence, a lot of people, the staycations this year, more there's going to be an element for a number of the knock on years of the people that are going to want to go for short breaks and stay local. And I just thought
Yeah,
in terms of people visiting you, and I mean we've been discussing a lot in the office about Somerset as a brand, as opposed
yeah.
to other counties across the country, particularly obviously Cornwall's very strong. As a cider maker in Somerset, do you think we have what are your thoughts on the Somerset as a brand outwardly across the country? And do you think we're doing enough? Do you think?
Well, I think there is one manufacturer in particular that is doing wonders for the brand of Somerset cider. I already talked about their presence in pubs. However, the heritage side and the traditional cider that a lot of you know traditional cider makers in Somerset produce,
Mm.
um, I I think that is not struggling, but it's maybe not as lively as it could be. And the brand of Somerset cider has goes back a long time. It goes back way, hundreds of years, and very it'll be a really good thing for us to use that, and show people that rural background, but modernize it and try and make it relevant to people today, and produce drinks that don't are not maybe like they used to be. People have a bad reputation perhaps for scrumpy and very high acid vinegary ciders, maybe being left in an oak barrel with a lot of air getting to them for a long time, and they're sort of 8.5 paint stripper percentage. So the perception of Somerset cider, we're trying to change to become a bit of a finer drink, something that you can enjoy instead of wine perhaps, and something that is a high quality drink, and you're not going to get the off flavors, you're not going to get that scrumpy taste, and you shouldn't end up with too much of a hard time the following day either.
Yeah, well, that's
So
always good
yeah,
to.
it's yeah, it's very good to know, but it's you're quite right. It's a really valuable thing that we have here in Somerset, and I'm very proud to run a Somerset cider business.
Yeah, great. I mean, obviously, on top of that, with the say food and drink is very well known in this part of the country, and as you said, as things are evolving in the cider industry, and but I wanted to, as a sort of taking it further back and putting all the things into in the hat of, as it were, of what we do in Somerset. Obviously, there's lots of changes going on, particularly with infrastructure and things, and I want to know your thoughts, particularly on obviously the lockdown and what's the lots of conversations that are going on at the moment is that people working from home. And obviously we live in
Yeah.
a beautiful part of the country. And I was reading yesterday about that, my brother-in-law works in London, he works in Canary Wharf, and they spent, I think, £3 million on new offices. And he's been in once so far this year.
Yeah.
And I wondered what, in terms as an opportunity for Somerset as, as a place to live, with the technology improving, in terms of the perception we've got historically, which is really important, that heritage you say, but Do you have any thoughts on impact of people moving here or working from home? Just wanted your thoughts on that, really.
There have been a lot of people move into the area, and there's been a bit of a turnover even locally. I've met a number of people who've moved from the city and bought properties over here. And I think it's important that people, when they do move from the city, realize that it's a different style of life, and a lot of the rural activities that happen here continue to happen. The farming and the um, the agriculture and the cows on the road, and it's a different pace of life. And as long as people are happy to embrace that, and you know not try and put up a big fence with their neighbors, but I think rural communities can be sometimes difficult places to live at the best of times. But I'd really love to see an, good neighborly relations amongst everybody living up here. And I say up here being up on the Blackdowns, but in rural communities generally, the helping people out and being friendly to each other, and just doing a bit more of a barter system perhaps with the things that they own and the time that they spend, and not just locking themselves away and hoping to have a sort of city-like lifestyle. It's a slower pace of life, and we like to talk to people and say hello to people.
Excellent. Well, that's very nice to hear. And so people, how can they, where are you going to be in the next running up to Christmas? Where can people see you and buy your ciders? Obviously, they can buy them online, but what sort of shows have you got coming up that you're going to?
Well, I limit my events during this time because of the apple harvest, and it's important to make the cider. That's my number one priority right now. But monthly, on the second Sunday every month, we will be continuing to support the Taunton Independent Market down on Castle Green, and that's a great market. Loads of great small independent producers. I'm also going to be doing the Ilminster Light Switch On, which is always a fun one, sometime towards the end of November, I believe. And then it'll be more Christmas markets again down in Taunton. I'm really trying to focus my sales and my efforts to my local town, and I will continue to offer free deliveries for TA1 to TA3 postcodes, and Wellington as well. Do free deliveries down to Wellington. Um, I'm quite often driving over that side, so it's easy enough to come and do. And I would just like to, yeah, encourage people to get in touch if they want to come and visit, or go to the website and check out some of the products there. We're going to be having some new ciders ready very shortly for Christmas. Packs of cider vinegars, mulled cider, apple juice, some oak aged ciders, and hopefully trying to expand the range, and just try and get some exciting new products out there.
Wonderful. Well, I look forward to seeing you at the independent market. I'd like to go along there. It's always part of the vibe, the run up to Christmas, particularly when it's grown locally and supporting local. So thank you so much for your time, Matt. It's been great to talk to you, and hear more about your business. And best wishes going forward. So
Thank you very much, Paul. It's been an absolute pleasure to come and speak to you today.
great. Thanks, Matt. Okay. Bye now.